those individuals and we can start.
Okay. Let me see. We'll start with a roll call, I guess. Cindy Clark. Wendy Clark.
Here.
Heidi DeWeingart.
Here.
Kylie Goslin.
Here.
Commissioner Mascara Bruno. She said she was going to join potentially a little bit late.
Yep.
Lisa Tepper Bates.
Here.
Ray Grigaldi. Here. We have a quorum in attendance for this meeting.
Great. Thank you, everybody. It feels like a very long time since we chatted, but appreciate everybody attending today. We have a pretty full agenda, so I guess we'll get started. So we're starting with the first item is the resolution for financing East Modernization, which is located in East Hartford, and Liz Valgorski to present. Liz?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
So this is a 4% tax-exempt financing request for the rehab preservation of 50 units in East Hartford. The property is in the CHFA portfolio currently. It's known as Easton Place. All units are affordable under 60% AMI, and the development offers 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units. 13 tenants have housing choice vouchers. All in the development team are well known to CHFA and have a successful record of development with rehab, with relo, and property management. The applicant, the developer, the GC, and GP all have identities of interest. I toured the property with Wendy Moores and Kathy Webb, and Bill Collins gave us the tour, and he showed us everything that would be done, told many, many stories. Of course, they're all in his favor. But one story I want to share with you, you know, he knows everyone in the town, and he wanted something. So he called the town superintendent, and the guy said, no, I can't help you. You have to talk to, I don't know, Joe Blow in X department. So Bill called Joe, and he says, hi, I'm Bill Collins, and starts to introduce himself. And Joe says, stop. Mr. Collins, I know who you are. He said, I actually grew up across the street in subsidized housing, and I showed my kids where I grew up. And then I pointed to your property and said, this is what subsidized housing should look like. And he's right. It is a beautiful property. It shows well. It's just, it is a little, it needs updating. But I thought that was a great accolade, and I think we hope all of CHFA properties get that we're the standard for subsidized housing. So that's the fluff story. Here's the facts. Total development costs are $10,300,000. It works out to a little over $206,000 a unit, which is a nice break from what we have been seeing. And my tech team did review the plans and specs and even asked him about it. He said he's still fine-tuning, you know, the numbers with his contractors, but he's confident he can bring the total in at the same number. The sale price was based on the appraised value. The equity takeout will be $1,330,000. He's putting net proceeds back in the form of a GP loan of $528,000. The financing, we are asking approval for up to $4.4 million in the tax exempt bonds. We underwrote it at 5.5, which you know we underwrite with a 50 bip cushion. Term will be up to $550,000. We are modifying the existing, there is an existing ITA loan on Easton Place. We will allow it to be modified and assumed by the new owner. It's going to be coterminous with the proposed loan. So the current maturity on this loan is 2039. We will be extending it to 2058. We're going to provide some combination of CMF and opportunity funds up to $1.5 million. We underwrote that at $300,000. And any increase above 300 will have a corresponding decrease to the DOH loan. And DOH is funding approximately $2,926,000 in new funds. They also have an existing loan on the books. They are forgiving the principal, and they're going to defer. It's approximately $1 million in interest they're going to defer. The Richmond Group will be the tax syndicator, and they're coming in at 90 cents on the dollar. As you know, this request will preserve 50 low-income units in a qualified census tract. The project will, of course, generate some NOI. It's an operating project. So that number is still, the numbers continue to change, of course, until we rate lock. The risk, this is an occupied property, but the borrower does have experience with relocation, and he does have a nice plan. You know, supply chain right now and inflation are the issues. But again, this is a very experienced developer who has 5 properties with CHFA right now. All are paying as agreed and operating well. And the property manager is Bruce Whitaker of Millennium Realty, who manages, I think, 24 properties right now in the CHFA portfolio. Any questions?
I have a question. Is the current developer or current owner the same as this new owner?
Well, it will be a different form of ownership.
With same control and member?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess aside from all of the wonderful things about this project, the one thing I'm struggling with is a very high non-construction cost. And this could all make sense, but just help me get there as well. Essentially, the principal will benefit from an equity takeout. I understand that he's put in back a portion of it into the project, but he'll also earn a developer's fee at some point, I would think. This is Wendy Clark speaking. Sorry, I thought I was on camera. Sorry about that. So help me understand why we wouldn't have just encouraged Mr. Collins to do, you know, your standard refi with lower non-construction costs.
That's a very good question. He is still under the requirement for low income rent. And I don't know if it would underwrite with a typical lender. And this is the normal practice. It does, you know, we do always question why the borrower is able to take out equity. That he's paying off developer loans and limited partner buyouts, and he is putting the net back in. I think we're going to talk about the next deal as well. He's putting more in, and he nets out $583,000. So it looks a little worse in this deal than when you combine the two.
I mean, from a developer perspective, what he's done is brilliant, right?
Absolutely.
I just don't know what we're supporting it if there's a less expensive way to do it. You know, we can park that discussion for now, but it's something that really jumped out at me on this project when I realized that Mr. Collins is the principal in a number of the entities that are involved here and in the next project.
I think it's personally it's the incentive for the developer to keep holding an affordable project, right? There has to be some carrot. But maybe Pat or Liz, you can give us your opinion.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to that. So in what this is considered a preservation deal, and in these preservation deals, historically, we've allowed some equity take to the owner as an incentive to participate in the continued affordability commitment on these properties. In this particular instance, the developer is utilizing 4% tax credits in order to essentially subsidize the redevelopment of this project. And in order to obtain those tax credits, there are certain rules that they have to follow, and one of them is to essentially give up the ownership. The ownership has to transition. So we see a lot of these friendly transitions with the 4% acquisition and rehab deals. I don't think it's uncommon. We have, in my past life at CHFA, we had a lot of discussion around what was an allowable equity take for an owner that was doing a preservation deal. And I know back then the discussion was somewhere around $25,000 a unit. This doesn't even come close to that. The vast majority of everything they're taking is either going to pay for the final administration and dissolution of their previous entity, or it's being put back into the property. So I agree with you. I think there has to be limitations on what we allow to be taken out as part of these restructures, sort of not restructure, but preservation deals. And I definitely think it's something we should talk about as a group going forward.
Thanks. That was very helpful.
Is part of that too, what you mentioned interest, did we roll some of the prior interest into this? What was that you said about the interest?
DOH has forgiven the principal on the loan. They are allowing the accrued interest to roll on the existing loan.
They're capitalizing the interest, but they're forgiving the principal?
Yes. Yeah, that was a request of the developer. I'm sure it has something to do with the tax structure.
Yeah, the taxes.
Yeah.
Heidi, would you mind if it's Tim Hodges? Can I just ask a quick question? In terms, I know that the syndicator is the Richmond Group, but do we have any sense, not that it's a big deal, but do we have any sense, is this going into a fund? Is it a proprietary deal? Do we know who the bank is behind this?
I do know who the bank is. I think it's in the memo, and it is someone we've worked with before. So, I'm sorry, I just looked this up. Credit Capital is the bank, and I don't know if it's a standalone or a fund.
Credit Capital. So that's not a Connecticut bank, is it?
I think it's a hedge fund or equity fund, isn't it? I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else? Any other questions, comments? We obviously need these projects to be renovated, and the question is how most efficiently and affordably we can do it. So I think this does raise some good questions that we could speak, on a separate time. Anybody else? Any other questions, comments?
If you're ready, I'll make a motion to approve.
Thanks, Greg. Is there a second?
Second, Lisa.
Thank you. Okay, Dawn, can we do the roll call, please?
Of course. Cindy Butler.
Yes.
Wendy Clark.
Yes.
Heidi Dwenger.
Aye.
Kylie Goslin.
Yes.
Lisa Tucker Bates.
Yes.
Greg Ugalde.
Yes.
Vote passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, Liz, sort of the sister loan financing for the West modernization, which is in Hartford.
Yeah. So this is currently known as Dillon Place. It's an existing 65-unit development in Hartford. Also, all units are low income up to 60% AMI 9 with the housing choice vouchers. This one has 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units. And this, of course, is very similar to East Modernization with the same development team, similar financing structure. And the difference, there is no existing DOH home loan with this one. Total development costs are $12 million, a little over $12 million, and this is $186,458 a unit. We're doing up to $4,791,000 for construction, up to $1,540,000 per mortgage. And this one too has an existing mortgage, which we will allow to be modified and extended to be coterminous with the new loans. And also with this one, up to $1,005,000 of a combination of CMF and opportunity funds. This one we underwrote at $500,000, but if there's any availability and this project receives more than the $500,000, then again the DOH loan will be reduced appropriately. Same Richmond Group and LifeTech Equity also at 90 cents on the dollar. DOH is funding $2,330,000. In this instance, the takeout is $1,835,000, and the GP loan is $2,054,000. Again, all the same. This is a preservation. This property is very well located. It's in Coltville area, and it's almost in a little oasis. It's away from Hartford. It's separated by the fields, and I think across the street looks like it's the historic housing for the Colt manufacturing, and it has, the rental storage fees behind it. Very nice area for Hartford, and very well maintained. This is actually where Bill has his corporate offices down in the basement of this property. So I went through very quickly because it's much like East. Please let me know if you have questions.
I noticed, I think on one of the deals, I don't remember whether it was both, but it looked like it was only going to be a 1-year construction, whereas I think it was just a complex where it should have showed 2 years.
We're giving them, good point, we're giving them 2 years, up to 2 years, when it can be a construction loan before it rolls to the final closing firm. But he does anticipate 12 months
Really?
to get it done.
Okay. Okay. Anybody questions, comments? No. He's performed this developer, and we don't have any issues.
Were there any good stories on this one, or did that only
apply
to the last?
I have one if you want it.
You want it.
All right, so, he's telling stories. We haven't been there yet, and I haven't seen this one. Wendy and Kathy knew about it, but he's explaining that it is out it's by itself, it's segregated. And he was there with his son, and the parking police came by, and they're ticketing people who park on the street, and there's nothing around there. So he went out, and he was ripping the guy apart, screaming at him. He said most of these tenants are single moms, and if they pay the parking ticket, they can't buy groceries.
Sure.
And the parking police guy got out of the van and pointed and was talking to his son and said, "See this man? He has the fire. He has the fire. You need this fire. You need to protect your tenants." And he said, "I won't ticket people today." So he drove away, and now they do have like a little courtyard where they can park, and the building is kind of like a 3, and then he issues parking vouchers so they can park on the street. So he told us that story to show he's very invested and protective of his tenants. And it is a nice area. It's bizarre that they would give parking tickets. There's nothing out there. So that's my story, Greg.
Excellent. We're going to have to start getting CHFA tapes for people.
Right.
Just a very quick question. Thank you so much, and thanks for all the heart you're putting into this. So I think if I understand right, the total unit cost is basically $63,000 a unit, according to the chart. Yes.
It's $63 a square foot.
It says the total. What I'm reading here is total per unit cost $63,000. Am I looking at the right place?
Construction alone. Yeah, I was doing the total development cost, so I broke it down to $186,000 a unit. But right, if you take out all the other $63,000.
And so I'm just wondering. So they're going to redo the kitchen and the bathroom in each unit. It seems a little bit like maybe a tight budget. That you're confident they can do it for that. Construction costs obviously have been all over the map. But you feel like they can do kitchens and bathrooms in each unit, demo to finish for that. Okay.
Very fair question, and that's, my tech team was all over that as well. I do know they're not doing granite, and he's being very cost effective. He's using the same contractors that he's used in the past, and he can trust the quality and the expenses. So we did ask him, they're low, it's wonderful to see low prices, but are you sure you can do it? Right. And he did say, we do expect to keep it with the total construction cost firm, but, the different categories are changing as we speak. So let's hope he does keep to it. Absolutely. Fair question.
Anybody else? Questions? Okay, if none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Wendy.
Thanks, Wendy.
Sorry, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa. Okay, Dawn.
First. Cindy Butler.
Yes.
Wendy Clark.
Yes.
Betty DeWeingart.
Aye.
Kylie Gosselin.
Yes.
Lisa Tepper Bates.
Yes.
Greg Ugalde.
Yes.
Commissioner Mascara-Bruno, have you joined us? Not yet. The vote passes unanimously.
Thank you. All right, next up on the agenda is the resolution for financing of Village at Park Rivers 5, which is a Hartford project, and to be presented by Debbie Alter.
Hello, everyone. Sorry I don't have any cute stories on this one. It's just the boring facts. The Village at Park River 5 is requesting a permanent first mortgage of up to $4.1 million from taxable bond proceeds. It was underwritten at a rate of up to 7.25% with a permanent term of 30 years and payments amortized over 40 years. The development is also requesting $1 million in subordinate financing from opportunity funds. This subordinate loan will be a construction to permanent loan with an interest rate of 1%. It will be payable interest only during the 24-month construction period, and then during the 30-year permanent period, it will accrue interest at 1% and be payable with 25% of available cash flow, and those payments will begin once the deferred developer fee is paid off. This is the 5th phase of new construction on the site of the previously demolished Westbrook Village in the Blue Hills neighborhood of Hartford. Phases 1, 2, and 3 are complete and fully occupied, and phase 4 is under construction, and they do maintain a waiting list. In this phase, there will be 58 units constructed in 4 buildings. 12 units will be targeted to households at or below 30% of AMI, and those units will provide supportive housing for intellectually disabled clients of the Department of Developmental Services. These units will also benefit from rental subsidies through the state RAP program. 24 units will be targeted to households at or below 50% of AMI, and 12 of those units will be supported with Section 8 rental subsidies from the Hartford Housing Authority. 10 units will serve households at or below 60% of AMI, and the remaining 12 will be unrestricted market rate units. This development was awarded 9% low-income housing tax credits in the 2022 round. Since the award, construction costs increased, which caused the funding gap. The gap is being closed with the addition of these opportunity funds and an additional $500,000 from DOH and federal funding. The development will be constructed to meet National Green Building Standards Emerald level and will include high performance insulation, air sealing, solar photovoltaic panels, and other energy efficiency measures. Amenities include a community room, a fitness center, and a playground. The site is on a bus line, which offers direct access to downtown Hartford, including Union Station. The development team has...
You are in the meeting now. There are more than 40 participants in the meeting.
We're very sensitive to that.
I'm just curious, are those tools used often? It seems like a practical request that borrowers would want to take advantage of, even the field observation.
You are muted. You can mute or unmute yourself by pressing star 6.
With regard to the appraisal, we're not looking to make it a practice that we waive appraised values. We had an appraisal that was done by one of our approved vendors, and what we didn't want to do was order a new one that would layer on an additional cost, but more importantly, would require 6 to 8 weeks for delivery and review, delaying the project and possibly adding additional cost to it. Our sole purpose in doing this was to move the project along, keep this particular portion of it economical. And had we not had an appraisal from a vendor that was on our approved list, we wouldn't be asking for this waiver.
And I've just pulled up the report, and the effective date of the report is October 25th, 2022.
Well, how old can an appraisal be for us? Still be current?
We don't really have any set out guidelines on that, but I
would consider an appraisal to start being stale dated after about 6 months.
Yeah.
Especially in this market. In a more stabilized market, you could probably get away with a little bit longer than that. But in this volatile market, I would say 6 months is probably true.
That means certainly cap rates have changed in the last 6 months. So I mean, we could stress it. But you make a good point, Cindy.
And I'm going to vote no.
Okay.
But can I just ask a question? To be fair, appraisals always take weeks. They're always out of date. Anytime you get an appraisal, it's already out of sync with the market. So it's really a judgment call as to how out of sync you are, whether it's, when they expedite an appraisal, it's still 6 or 8 weeks, right?
Yes.
So if this is 3 months, it's really more like 6 to 9 months old under that theory.
Right, but we're not in a declining value market right now. So I think there's very little risk that and especially since we took the lowest of the derived values, I think CHFA's security is more than adequate on this project.
I don't know if it matters, but I'll go ahead and say this. I know in home ownership programs, the appraisals are good for construction and rehab are good for 6 months. So just to kind of add to that.
Okay. Anybody else? Questions, comments?
The rationale for moving forward without the on-site observer? I think I missed that.
So the bulk of the CHFA financing is a permanent loan, which would not be dispersed until the property was fully complete. For the subordinate funding, we haven't been typically requiring a field observer. They would visit the property biweekly. It would be at the cost of the developer. On our typical tax credit only deals, we do require just the reports from either the project architect or the lender, the senior lender on the property. So we feel that we will have adequate understanding of the process and the progress of the property without having to hire our own separate observer.
And TD is the bank, right? And they're going to have their inspectors, I think.
Right.
And Debbie Penrose is the developer, and we've done a lot of good work with them, correct? We have a pretty solid relationship, and they've performed.
This meeting is being recorded.
Yeah, the 4 previous phases they've worked on, as well as Meriden Commons and Meriden and Torrington Riverfront in Torrington.
That's helpful to know.
Anybody else? Questions? Comments? Okay. Dawn, is there a motion to approve? I can move it. Is there a second?
I'll second, Heidi.
Thank you. Okay, Dawn.
Cindy Butts.
No.
Wendy Clark.
Yes.
Heidi DeWenger.
Aye.
Kylie Gosselin.
Yes.
Commissioner Mascara Bruno. Lisa Tepper Bates.
Yes.
Greg Ugalde.
Yes.
The vote passes with 1 vote against.
Thank you. All right. Next on our agenda is the resolution regarding financing, modified financing for Cherry Street Lofts, Phase 1, Bridgeport. And Pat, you're the lucky winner.
Yeah, so I'm sure you were all excited to see Cherry Street Lofts back on the mortgage agenda. But this, I think, is while I don't have any heartwarming stories, I think this is a very positive move in the right direction for CHFA. So the purpose of the action that's before you is to reduce the CHFA construction mortgage from $11 million to $4.5 million by providing a path for the tax credit equity provider, CREA, and its investors to contribute their 5th and 6th installments of tax credit equity on this project in the total amount of $6.5 million. So the action requests that we accept the 2 final installments and reduce the construction note to not more than $4.5 million. And then restructure the $4.5 million to a 40-year amortization with a 5% rate and a term of not more than 24 months. So due and payable in full after 24 months. So the result of these actions will reduce the CHFA's total exposure from $23.7 million, which is the current balance as of now, down to $17 million. And that would consist of the $12.5 million term loan, which is currently amortizing and paid as agreed, and the $4.5 million construction balance. It's estimated to have about 80% loan to value at that point. I don't know how much of a history you guys want on this. I think you're all very familiar with it. If you want me to pick up from where we left off in October, I can do that, or I can go back to the beginning and give a very brief overview of how this all came to be. I'll give a very brief.
Brief would be good.
Yeah, I'll give you a very brief overview of what was a very long history. So this project was approved by the board in 2016. What was approved was a $22.5 million construction interest-only loan, a $12.5 million perm loan, interest only during construction, and then amortizing thereafter. And then there was a $5 million FAF loan. All three loans are secured by the same first mortgage. And so in construction started in 2017. Project incurred numerous delays, including a major problem with the flooring. The board approved a series of extensions that took the loans to October 15th of 2022 of this year. All additional costs that were created by these delays were actually borne by the co-GPs. CHFA did not increase its loan due to any of the delays that were incurred. Equity contributions over time reduced the construction balance from the 22.5 down to $11 million. On October 15th of 2022, the perm loan started amortization and the construction loan became due in full. The perm loan has been paying as agreed since that time and continues to be current. The construction loan matured. We did not extend it, and the balance remains outstanding, accruing interest. In executive session in October, I have to be careful what I say here, but in that executive session we went into in October, we discussed a strategy whereby the developers were to receive a commitment from Freddie for a loan totaling approximately $19 million, at which time the tax credit investor, CREA, would release the final contributions in exchange for a standstill agreement and the release of the 8609s and finalization of the cost certification. The resulting commitment that they received from Freddie was inadequate, based on a couple items, which I'll tell you about in a moment. And it failed to address the entirety of CHFA's debt, and so CREA was unwilling to contribute the final equity installments based on that commitment. So what impacted the final underwrite after the submission from Citibank to Freddie Mac was there were essentially three things. We had some interest rate creep during that time period. There was some residual bad debt that was caused by COVID-related forbearances that carried forward, and there was some continued non-payment with those forbearances after the forbearances were up. And then there was an unfavorable decision from PURA to allow the developer to switch the property to landlord-paid utilities. So the developers continue to work on all of these. Wynn is the property manager. They've made great strides in the reduction of the bad debt, and they've also been able to, as people have moved out, they've been able to maximize allowable rent. And then as it relates to the unfavorable decision from PURA, there are several other avenues that the current developer is pursuing. Probably the most promising is they're conducting a complete utility analysis and providing it to Spectrum, who's our compliance monitor for LHTC properties. And those actual numbers will be reviewed by Spectrum and most likely approved for use for utility allowances going forward. So both the reduction of bad debt, higher rents, and the increase in revenue generated by the reduction in utility allowances should equate to enough for them to generate a loan amount, hopefully within the next 9 to 12 months, to be able to take us out in full. So, I think that covers all that. So when we got when we got the commitment from Freddie, we continued CHFA staff, namely Michelle Onofrio and Joe Boccio, continued to work with CREA to come up with an alternative plan in the event that the commitment was inadequate. And so that's how we achieved the action before you. So CREA has committed to provide the final 2 equity installments of $6.5 million if CHFA was willing to amortize, even for just a short term, the remaining balance of the construction loan, so that all the remaining debt on the property was amortizing. And so that's where we stand at this point. If you see fit to approve this, we'll get the $6.5 million in, reduce our exposure on this asset, and proceed to modify the remaining balance. If when we get to the end of this, they are unable to perform still, at least this gives us some options as to how we might resolve the final remaining debt on the property. So does anybody have any questions?
Just so the 6.5 puts us in a much better position to evaluate as we go forward. So what keeps you awake at night as you look at this and you have to handicap it? We've fortified our position somewhat, but it still is what it is, right? I mean, so what could go wrong in your mind that's the biggest concerns?
Greg, if you're talking about after this, I sleep much better after we get the $6.5 million. Right now at the $6.5 million, I think we're exposed. We're probably about 20% over the value of the property with our current balances. So I would be uneasy if we weren't to accept the $6.5 million. Once we receive the $6.5 million, based on my experience in the industry, I'm very comfortable with where we sit. We have a performing firm loan at $12.5 million. This $4.5 million remaining. In a worst case scenario, we could collect against the value of the asset. In a better case, we could always permanently amortize that $4.5 million through modification in 2 years, depending upon the performance of the project at that point. I do see the operation continuing to grow. This project is, even with the bad debt and the transition, they're at around 94% 94% occupancy right now, and that's expected to climb to 96, 97%. They have a very strong waiting list. I'd have to tell you, after this, I'll be very, very comfortable with where we sit with Cherry Street.
I'll just chime in since my office sits in Bridgeport, and not that this necessarily should sway anybody's opinion. Look, we're already in this deep, and so the idea that there won't be other issues. I mean, let's just put that out the window. That the floor issue was a huge issue for them. That was not their fault, and we stuck with them during that. There will be other issues that come up, I have to believe. So we just have to make sure that we continue to support. This is a major project in Bridgeport, and this developer is all in. I mean, he's got a 10-year plan to redevelop that side of Bridgeport. So I would just encourage us to, understand there are going to be issues moving forward, but as long as they continue to perform the way that they're performing, CREA obviously for their role wants it to go well. The developer wants it to go well. It's good for the city. We should just be prepared to, adjust as we need to, but understand that there are going to be issues moving forward as well.
Yeah, Tim, if I may speak to that, we are committed to the success of this project. We meet with all interested parties on the project on a weekly basis, and we will continue that going forward until final resolution is achieved. And we really think that the the path forward is a lot clearer now, and I don't disagree with you. There are always unexpected obstacles in the path. But I think this is probably the best position this asset will be in since its inception.
I just want to second, Tim, your important comments, and thanks, Pat, for that. This type of project is so very important, and there's a reason that it's important that CHFA is taking these types of projects on. We are going to have to think about more of this in Connecticut when we think about doing right by our cities, because we do have a lot of projects like this that that could be done if there's somebody to back it. And it does bring value to our communities, but they're risky. These old factory buildings are incredibly complicated, as I know our CHFA experts could all tell us. There's been a complicated story, but it's clearly on the way to a victory. And I love the fact that it is so highly occupied right now. That's terrific news. And if you have a chance to look at the development, either from the outside or the pictures available online, it really looks like a quality project. So thank you for your hard work to get us to a better place in this.
Thank you.
Okay. Always like a good pay down. It's always helpful. All right. Anybody else? Comments, questions, concerns?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thanks, Greg. Is there a second?
Second, Wendy.
Okay, Wendy, thank you. All right, John?
Mm-hmm. Cindy Bubbs.
Yes.
Wendy Clark.
Yes.
Heidi DeWeingart.
Aye.
Kylie Gosselin.
Yes.
Commissioner Mascara-Bruno. Lisa Tupper Bates.
Aye.
Greg Ugalde.
Aye.
The vote passes unanimously.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll hear about it again. All right. Next up on the agenda, resolution regarding the reauthorization of small multifamily community development financial institution loan pool. Say it 3 times fast. Mary.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. You have before you that resolution requesting a reauthorization of the small multifamily CDFI loan pool program. We would like to use the currently available allocation through January 31st, 2024. The reauthorization will permit the participating CDFIs to continue to utilize the program while staff does a thorough review of the impact and potential improvements for the program. We would also expand to make 2-unit multifamily dwellings eligible for the program financing, as well as multifamily dwellings that are not deemed blighted necessarily, but are in need of rehabilitation. In structuring the program going forward, CHFA will explore a master participation agreement, which is a structure that may encourage other CDFIs to participate in the program, thereby allowing us to expand into further pockets of Connecticut. By way of some background, we launched the program in 2014 with an initial board-approved $5 million investment of ITA funds and sought participating CDFIs through a request for qualifications. There were 3 responses, all were approved, but only 2 were actively participating, and that was Capital for Change and Hartford Community Loan Fund. One of the goals of the program was to provide participating CDFIs low-cost funds on a project-by-project basis to address the vacant and blighted multifamily properties that we see in so many of our urban areas, and to see if we could expand into other areas of Connecticut in more moderate income communities. All in all, to assist revitalization efforts in low to moderate income geographies. So the funding was increased twice, once by an infusion of $2 million in 2017 through, again, board authorization ITA funds, and then ITA's $3 million and OPM funds of $3 million in 2019 for transit-oriented development-focused projects. To date, approximately $10.7 million has been dispersed through the program, financing 69 properties with a total of 268 units of housing. The average disbursement from the loan pool is $155,735 per property, or roughly $40,000 per unit. Board authorization for the program has expired, so while we know that both of our CDFI partners have pipelines with borrowers waiting to access the program, we're hopeful that we're able to continue for the year. It's been a very successful program in achieving its goals, and the year will give us time to identify any potential improvements that we could see to serve higher opportunity area municipalities and maybe any other identified needs that we discover as we do our research. Many of the CDFIs engaged in housing finance in Connecticut have already been contacted. Others we're reaching out to on a continual basis. And we would anticipate some type of outreach, a spring roundtable or an alternative forum type of format to take place to, again, see what we could do to enact with our partners. So while we undertake review of the program and its results, we are recommending that the board reauthorize the program with the expansions through January 31st of 2024. Does anyone have any questions?
But just to manage expectations on whether you might get some feedback, when do you think the review period will be completed, Terry?
Review is underway now, and as we do some exploration, we're looking at the impact of our program, the impact of other programs. We're kind of doing some outreach, and so we anticipate that would be kind of wrapped up at least by, say, summertime, third quarter, so that we could make a recommendation on a new program that could be operationalized. It's a great program and a great opportunity to provide assistance to stock that doesn't otherwise have a means of financing, especially if there are unbankable developers, I'll say, because they're often priced out of the market, but they can do work with CDFIs. And then we supporting the CDFIs can attract that type of improvement into communities.
So one of our biggest goals over the next couple of months is to identify the barriers that have kept other CDFIs from participating in the program. We'd like to expand this so that we reach all parts of the state, especially the east and southeast, which seems to not participate as often as some of the other CDFIs. So it's going to take a little bit of time and effort to gather all this information, but as Terry said, we're probably looking at a late fall, probably late fall that will present this to the board for final authorization.
Okay, anybody else? Any other questions? We're looking for a 1-year extension, really, of the project with more to come. Okay, is there a motion?
I think Kylie had her hand up. Kylie?
I don't know if we're raising hands or just talking, but I did. I mean, I don't support for the small multifamily loan fund in particular, growing it as well as including ways to make it more user friendly. I know some CDFIs, have other sources of funding that are either more flexible or interest rate or forgivable loans, and so that's one of the reasons I've heard that it isn't always tapped into. But I think when we talk about some of the zoning challenges we have with developing, especially small multifamily and mill housing, which we know we have in the state and need to do some rehab on, this is one of the places where we don't have to deal with the zoning hurdles that we have because these properties already exist. And so I think as we look to ways to grow our housing stock, especially outside of places where we've traditionally had housing stock, we know that small multifamily housing is in pretty much every town in the state, and this is a great tool for getting at that. We need other more flexible tools to do more small multifamily. So I just want to give a ringing endorsement for this program. The partnership's done a lot of research in this space, and this is one of the tools we have, and we need more, but this is a primary one, and I think it's critical that CHFA not only continues to fund this, but also continues to look at ways to make it easier to use, look at ways that it can be used in places where it's not currently used. So I just wanted to offer that.
Thank you.
Yeah, And just very quickly, and Terry, thank you for your work on this. And my request sort of in tandem, I think, Kylie, with what you're saying. It's a good program, but it would be really helpful, I think, in the evaluation of how to make it easier, to also take a step back and what is the goal, right? And just really kind of say, how many households need this? How many are we trying to reach, right? What are we really trying to accomplish here? And maybe should we be more ambitious? These are fairly small amounts of money, but when you drive around the state, as many of us do, it looks like there's an awfully large need for what I think we're trying to offer here. So, you know, let's set some targets for ourselves as to exactly what we're trying to accomplish and how many we're trying to reach, and you know, and really understand that together if we can. I think that'd be really helpful.
So one of the spaces I would encourage CHFA to look at too is in technical assistance. As we know, many CDFIs are well qualified to support this work. I know there was an existing contract that ended with lists that provided TA to some of these small development projects, but maybe more of that technical assistance would help work through some of the bugs with these types of projects, which can be challenging from a financing standpoint for multiple different reasons.
Okay, so maybe we need to look at more resources as well.
Okay. We intend to look at all those. As a matter of fact, Marcus Smith from our research group is already digesting some information for us to identify the number of units. Lisa, to your point, the number of units. I mean, this is a huge housing stock in the state of Connecticut. The 2s, 3s, up to 5s and 6s. There's so much of this product in every municipality in the state of Connecticut, and we are excited at the prospect of being able to access more of that housing stock through this program.
Okay, well, I think everybody's favorable inclined. So is there a motion to approve the extension?
So moved.
Thanks.
Second.
I'll second.
Greg, Wendy, Kylie, whoever. All right, John.
Cindy Butts.
Yes.
Wendy Clark.
Yes.
Heidi DeWeingart.
Aye.
Kylie Gosselin.
Aye.
Commissioner Mascara Bruno. Lisa Tepper Bates.
Yes.
Greg Gavaldi. Aye. Vote passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda is the review of the mortgage committee minutes from November 15th.
Nope. You're skipping me, Heidi.
Oh, did I skip? I'm sorry. I got this.
F?
I have to tell you, I can't print out an agenda, so I sort of right, you're right. I absolutely skipped number 6. Resolution to amend the memorandum of agreement for the state regarding multifamily pipeline program and HTF program. Sorry, Pat.
That's okay. That's probably going to take longer than my presentation.
Okay.
So I'll do this quickly because I know we're running short on time. So if you recall, back in September, the board authorized an MOA with DOH that allows CHFA to provide underwriting and technical services review on behalf of DOH for an allocation of funds from the State Bond Commission from the Housing Trust Funds. And that was for 3 specific properties: West Hartford Fellowship, Cedar Point 2, and Eagleville Green. Those funds were to be allocated to DOH. The MOA was entered into in an attempt to make the transactions in which both CHFA and DOH participated more efficient and more cost effective for the borrowers. It was considered a pilot program with the hope that it would pave the way for similar projects. In December, the State Bond Commission approved allotments from the Housing Trust Fund for 3 additional CHFA DOH projects, Parkside Gables, and then East Modernization and West Modernization, which was approved by the board, by the committee today. These approvals provided that these funds would be allotted to and dispersed by CHFA directly. So this resolution before you proposes to amend the September MOA as it relates to these 3 properties, with DOH to incorporate additional services to be provided by CHFA. Those include the receipt and administration of the funds by CHFA's finance staff, and then the documentation and the closing of the transaction into CHFA's name by CHFA legal staff. So as the funds will be allotted directly to CHFA, we'll have the discretion to use in the use of the funds and the repayment of the funds, and CHFA is going to be required to comply with the HTF statute in the use of these funds. So a proposed template of the MOA is attached to the resolution, and with your approval, we'll get that executed either in light form or in substantially similar form in the next couple of weeks. And then we expect that the Parkside Gables will be presented. It's in the process of being underwritten. It should be presented to the board within the next couple of months. Any questions?
I don't really understand what you. So basically, we're just authorizing CHFA to deal directly with the project rather than going through DOH.
Yeah, so the MOA that we did in September was for limited services. It was for underwriting and it was for technical services.
Okay.
DOH did the financial administration and they did the legal work on those three projects.
I see.
These funds were allotted directly to CHFA. So a bypass DOH came directly to CHFA. So now CHFA has to add in those two functions in the MOA.
All right.
So we're adding in the financial administration and the closing, the legal administration.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Well, we don't have Sayla on the phone. No, I assume she's in favor of this?
This was, yes. Okay. She directed this.
Okay, great. All right, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thanks, Lisa. Second? I'll second. Heidi. Okay. Dawn?
Cindy Botts. Wendy Clark.
Yes.
Heidi DeWeingart.
Aye.
Kylie Gosselin.
Aye.
Commissioner Mascara-Bruno. Lisa Tupper Bates.
Yes.
Greg Ugalde.
Yes.
Let me call again. Cindy, I didn't hear your response earlier.
Maybe she had to drop.
It's possible. All right. The vote passes.
Sorry, it absolutely would not unmute. I don't. Yes.
Welcome back. And
I just been like fighting with my laptop, as you all said. Yes.
Maybe it needs a vacation or something.
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay. Now, next in order is the review of the mortgage committee minutes for November 15th. Anybody have any comments, corrections, changes? If not, I'll take a motion to approve.
Motion to approve is presented.
Thanks, Greg.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, Dawn?
All right. Cindy?
Yes.
Wendy Clark.
I opt to abstain.
All right. Heidi DeWeingart.
Aye.
Kylie Gosselin.
Yes.
Commissioner Mascara-Bruno. Lisa Tupper Bates.
Aye.
Greg Ugalde.
Aye.
The vote passes with one abstention.
Right. Okay. Now we have our two reports, the home ownership report that for Lisa.
I didn't know if you wanted to, we're past the time, did you want us to keep going or?
Yeah, I think we can get through this quickly. I mean, hoping everyone, if it's okay, we'll go quick.
I can do that.
If you have to drop, so be it. Lisa?
Great, thank you. I just, this is just sort of a recap of, it's basically all of 2022. So if we could go to the next slide.
Give us the highlights, please.
Yes. So in addition to rising house costs, during the latter half of 2022, we experienced dramatic increases in interest rates, further burdening our borrowers' ability to qualify for financing. for much of Connecticut, the median sales price was $350,000, and you would need to earn $80,000 to $100,000 to qualify. It appears that almost half of Connecticut households earn less than that amount. And the next slide, 92% of CHFA's portfolio is current, and 4% of the delinquent loans are only 30 days past due. There was actually one less foreclosure initiated in 2022 as compared to 2021. And the next slide, please. Despite the rise in interest rates and home costs, the number of purchase first mortgages increased by 40% over 2021. And the next slide. The top 5 lenders for 2022 are listed here. Note that Homestead Funding's originations were mostly from one loan officer as compared to the other lenders with multiple loan officers producing loans for CHFA programs. I just thought that was important to point out that this one person by himself is pretty much carrying that position for that fifth to be rated number 5. And we can move on to the next slide. The number of DAP loans increased by 45% over 2022, closing out the year with 1,242 DAP loans. The next slide. The Time to Own program represents a portion of the success of the homeownership programs with 327 Time to Own loans purchased during 2022. Another thing to note is that 31% of the reservations were in high and very high opportunity areas. Next slide. 41% of CHFA's lending was concentrated in Hartford County. The distribution you see here is typical for CHFA year over year based on affordability and inventory. Next slide. Almost one half of CHFA's lending activity was to women-headed households. Next slide. 44% of our lending activity was to borrowers of color, and we hope to increase this amount in 2023. Any questions? Is that fast enough?
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good.
This is Heidi. I don't want to keep us later, but the question I had was, with the intention to increase borrowers of color, or just that last slide, what actions is CHFA planning on taking in order to do that?
We're actually planning more community outreach and more in-person outreach and hosting certain events that will hopefully draw people in to meet with us and have a better understanding. I think that sometimes the messaging isn't out there, so that's one of the things. And we're working with the Remo Department, Marcus, and his group to come up with some other ideas of how we can expand homeownership opportunities in these areas.
Okay, thank you. And last but certainly not least, Wendy with the multifamily report.
Good afternoon, everybody. So this month's report on the first page highlights Village at Park River 3, which is a 65-unit new construction, 9% development located in Hartford. It is complete and fully occupied, and the final closing is scheduled in March. This is Penrose was the developer, and the financing was provided by a private bank with DOH funding as well as the tax credit equity. As you recall, just earlier in this meeting, Debbie also presented the 5th phase of this development. So this is a nice picture of what the 3rd phase looks like. The second page of the report includes an overview of the multifamily pipeline, where everything stands right now, how many applications are under review and heading towards either initial or final closing. Of the 94 total developments that are in the pipeline, the majority are 4% transactions, and 61 of the 94 are in the pending final closing stage. On the 3rd page of the report, we've highlighted some of the conferences and events that multifamily staff has attended over the last several months. I'm not going to really go into any of that, but if you're interested, it's there. And then just to give you a status of where the 9% tax credit round stands, 18 applications were received, 4 in the preservation classification, and 14 in the new construction classification. And the team has been assembled and multifamily review of those applications has started. And then the next page highlights the closings that have taken place, and then also some of the applications that we expect to present to the mortgage committee and the board in the next several months. And then finally, the last page of the report provides a deeper dive into one of those transactions. This one is Eagleville Green, that's located in Stores. It's a 4% tax credit application, 42 units. The developer is the Mansfield Nonprofit Housing Development Corporation. This property will be a half mile from the Yukon campus, and it will likely be presented to board and mortgage in March. So that's it, unless there's any questions.
Everybody sounds very, very busy.
We are.
Any questions? Comments? Well, thank you, everybody, for your patience and time. Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Thank you. Is there a second? Okay. Everybody in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thanks, everyone.